guys, it's Ivory and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things from mental health and wellness to plants and days in my life. So today I'm going to be talking about my journey with moving during COVID-19. So moving is already hard enough, but then when you have to move in the middle of a pandemic, things just can go a little crazy. So I'm gonna be talking about what it was like to move during a global pandemic, some of the struggles that I came across, some of the differences that were definitely noticeable between moving during COVID and kind of a normal move, and some things that I regret and things that I wish I had done a little bit differently. So stay tuned. Lot throughout my life, throughout undergrad and grad school, and then moving for postdoc. And I've just moved a lot and changed apartments and had to do a lot of apartment hunting. So I have a pretty good experience with knowing what it's like to have to apartment hunt on a normal day, without a global pandemic. But recently I was hired as a neuropsychologist in North Carolina, so I had to move from Virginia, where my postdoc was, to North Carolina. I first interviewed for the job on March 14th, I believe. It was somewhere around that middle of March, just before Corona really reared its head. So things were a little bit up in the air for a couple of weeks. When I did hear that I got the job, I think it was made official sometime in April. I immediately started apartment hunting, even though I knew that I wasn't going to be moving until July when my fellowship was over. But I am really frantic about these things. I think it's important to first kind of talk about what type of person I normally am. So normally when I'm apartment hunting, I look well in advance. I think that most places don't know their availability until about 6 or 8 weeks beforehand. I tend to look 3 to 4 months ahead of time because I need to know that I have looked at all of my options and, kind of unturned every stone before I make a decision. And I have to kind of grid everything out. I make checklists to see if this apartment complex or this apartment has met all of my criteria. I do compare and contrast charts. I do a whole grid. It's a thing. But that's because I want to make sure that the place where I'm living is the right fit for me and it has everything that I need. So of course I'm thinking about price, but I'm also thinking about security and if there is a washer and dryer in the facility, and what kind of amenities do they have? Is there a pool? Is there a gym? What's the gym look like? What type of equipment does it have? Are they offering any specials? What's the pet fee if I think I might want to get a dog? I normally look on like apartments.com and whatever other, like Apartment Finder or whatever other apartment websites there are. So I looked at all of the apartments offered in those areas and did the same thing of making a pros and cons list based on what I could see from apartments.com and from YouTube, if there were YouTube videos or reviews about these places, as well as their own websites. So now is where it gets tricky and different because of COVID. So normally I go down in person. Even if I don't live in the same city, I will still go down and look at these apartments in person. I'll just schedule all of the tours for a weekend, so that way I can just hit them all, see what they look like in person, see what the surrounding area looks like, and just really get a good feel for each place. Could not do that with COVID or during COVID because everything was completely shut down. They were not offering in-person tours, and even if they were, I didn't feel comfortable going. So instead of doing an in-person tour, we had to set up virtual tours. Some of these we're just going to send you the same 3D tour that's on apartments.com. Others were, we already pre-filmed a video of us touring this unit, so I'm just going to send that to you. And then some of them were FaceTime tours. Now, obviously there are difficulties with connectivity issues and then the clarity of the video, the Wi-Fi going in and out. So with the FaceTime tours, they were not always as clear as I would have liked. And I had to kind of stop and say, oh wait, I didn't get that, can you go back and re-show that area? And it's hard to get a feel for exactly how large certain spaces are when you're just through video, because you can't actually see it and feel it and move around and do flips or whatever you would normally do. So it's kind of hard to map out and get a good sense of exactly how big everything is, even if they tell you the dimensions. Unless you like go and measure that type of space out in your current home, it's hard to imagine what that may look like and where your furniture will fit in. The other problem with that is that it's hard to see everything that I would like to see. So because we were doing things virtually, they often did not have time or were not able to show me certain areas within the apartment community. So things like the gym, and also the gym was closed for most people. So actually some of them didn't even have access to go into the gym even if they wanted to. So different things that I would normally see on an in-person tour, I was not able to see through these virtual tours. And of course, you know, you kind of have no idea what the surrounding area actually looks like unless you've been to that city before, or you know the area, or you can just easily drive around there. Now, I was not going to drive 5 hours from Charlottesville to Charlotte just to drive around the city and not actually be able to do anything. So, you know, I kind of had to just leave that one up to God. But, you know, I was just hoping that, you know, everything that I read and heard about this area was actually what it was going to be. I do recommend actually going to the street view on Google and looking at the immediate surroundings of the place where you're thinking about living. At least that way you can kind of like turn and see the streets and see if there's a park, or if there's like raggedy neighborhood like right next door, you know, those types of things. You can see the immediate surroundings, but of course you still can't get a great feel for it. As far as the actual moving process, this was not much different, to be honest. I hired movers, and the only thing that was different was they wore masks, we wore masks, but otherwise they just moved my things, and so that actually was not a big deal. I actually packed up most of my stuff ahead of time because your girl ain't got thousands of dollars to be spending on movers, but I packed up most of my stuff myself to cut costs in that way, and then just had the movers wrap up delicate items and just move everything to the truck and to storage and then to my new place. And now comes the moving in experience and actually getting to know the area that you have chosen to live without ever seeing it. One of the top 2 most frustrating things about moving during COVID, and it ain't number 2, that is actually moving in and realizing that there are so many questions you wish you would have asked that you didn't even think to ask. Don't get me wrong, my apartment is banging, but I probably would have been able to make a more informed decision if I had known these things in advance, or if I would have known to ask these questions in advance. Would it have changed my mind? Would I have ended up moving somewhere else? Probably not. I love my apartment community. I love my actual apartment. And I probably still would have chosen to live here even if I had asked all those questions. One of the things that I wish I would have known is that every building within my apartment community looks different. So on the website, obviously you can see, here's what the apartment complex looks like, but you don't get to see how every building looks. And so from the outside, most of them look different. I mean, it's just one of those aesthetic things. It's not like my building's raggedy, but it's just like, oh, this building looks like this looks luxury. Oh, okay, this looks like a nice little neighborly community. Oh, okay, this looks like maybe a little...
When we talk about fabulosity, I don't see it.
And kind of along with those differences, there's also a difference with my balcony size as opposed to some of the other apartment buildings within this community. Mine is, I mean, it's decent size, but it's quite small, and there are others that have larger balconies, but that wasn't something that, you know, was emphasized throughout the tour or online. And I certainly would have known to ask, like, how big is my balcony in comparison to this model? And then also, if you're looking at an apartment complex that has a balcony, you would want to think about the view, or even, you know, even if it's not a balcony, even if it's just your window, you want to ask, where is this window facing. And that's something that, you know, if there is a vacancy when you're apartment hunting during times when we're actually able to go and see these places, you can say, is this the apartment that I would be renting? If yes, you can actually see the view then. Another thing that I didn't even think to ask was about who gets access to the parking garage. So honestly, I didn't even know that there was a parking garage. I always ask about parking and what parking is like, what guest parking is like. Is there a fee for guest parking? Is there a monthly fee for my parking? I always ask those types of questions, but it did not occur to me to ask who gets access to the parking garage. The thing that concerns me most is snow and how I'm going to be able to get my car out if it's snowing. I don't want to have a shovel to be able to dig myself out. I just want to be able to come out of a parking garage and just drive straight through. But yeah, I mean, I had no idea that there was even a parking garage here because no one talked to me about that and said, well, if you choose this development, you get access to the parking garage. And if you choose that development, then you don't, you just have a parking lot. But if I had been able to come in person and actually see, oh, it looks like there's a parking garage here and it looks like there's also parking lots around, who has access to that? You know, I would have been able to ask those types of questions. The other big thing is just, where is everything located? You know, because we couldn't see everything on the FaceTime virtual tour, I just don't know where things are located. Even though she did kind of show us some of the other areas within the community, you didn't actually walk there yourself. You're kind of just on FaceTime while she's walking there. And so you don't have any idea. You have no mental map of where these things are. And then when it actually came to moving in, we did not get a tour. And, you know, I think that that's probably something that you can ask for when you actually move in is, since I didn't come before, is it possible that you can take me on a tour now? They definitely gave us a map of the property, but there are still things that I'm like, well, it says that we have this within our community. Where the heck is it? Another thing is my building does not have an elevator, and that was not something that I even thought to ask because I saw the woman get on an elevator when she showed me an apartment. But it turns out that my building does not have an elevator. So that is something that you want to know when you're preparing to move, because you need to know if you're gonna have to carry all those boxes and your mattress and couch up the stairs, or if your movers are gonna have to do that, or if there's access to an elevator to make that process simpler. Kind of going back to certain aesthetics, I mean, things look different on camera. So the floor color, I mean, I love it in person, it's beautiful. But it looked different to me on our FaceTime call. And so, you know, there are just certain things like slight differences in color based on video. It's kind of just hard to map out if your furniture or if your rugs or whatever decor you have are going to fit in the way that you thought it was, because there could be variations in the color. I've also been really struggling with moving during COVID because I can't take advantage of certain opportunities that are offered within our community, like our amazing gym. I want to go to the gym so freaking bad, but I can't because everything's shut down because of COVID. So there are things like that and other social events that frequently happen during normal times that are not happening right now because everything is shut down. And kind of along those same lines, it's harder to make friends. I mean, Samantha and I moved here by ourselves. We don't know anyone. And so we were really looking forward to being able to be social and join different groups and go to different events and really make friends, but I am still not going outside because COVID is real. In the same line, it's really just hard to explore the community too, because you want to go out and go to restaurants and go to festivals and things like that. And some of those things are just not happening. And again, I'm just not comfortable with going to a restaurant at this point. So it's harder to get to know the area, which, you know, again, that's something that you get really excited about. You're in a new place, you want to explore, you want to see everything that this place has to offer, but you can't because everything is shut down because Rona ripped it up. So some of those things are definitely more difficult, and it's harder to kind of really get settled in our new place because we can't go and explore and shop the way that we would want to. And also, I would say come with your own cleaning supplies. Hopefully you stocked up on cleaning supplies either before COVID hit or at the beginning of it, because going to Target and Walmart, their shelves were completely empty. But luckily I am just a person who just always has a ton of cleaning supplies. Even before COVID hit, I was stocked up on hand sanitizer. I didn't have to buy any throughout this entire 5-6 months or so, because I just always have those things on hand. So hopefully you do too, because you will need to clean in your new place. So my biggest takeaway from all of this is to ask all of the questions, even if you feel like it's a dumb question, like, does the floor look the same to you in the video as it does in person? Or is there an elevator? Do I have access to a parking garage? Like, ask all of the questions. If there is time, ask them to take you around the entire community so that you can see the exterior of the buildings. Ask them, are there things that you think I won't be able to see over the video that are important for me to know? And then when you actually move in, again, ask all of the questions and ask them to take you on an in-person tour now that you have moved in. Best of luck to you. I hope that if you are getting ready to move, that things go well. And if you are getting ready to move, let me know down in the comments below, and let me know what some of your concerns have been about moving during a pandemic, and what your experience has been so far. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.